Hello everyone, it's Lennon. Welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about journaling because I was quite specifically actually asked in a recent video that I put out called Self-Mythologizing Pitfalls. I was asked how to tell the truth and maybe even possibly keep actual secrets and some tips on journaling. And I thought, over the years I've amassed a couple of tricks, right? I don't know if they're going to be revolutionary, but we'll see. We'll see if anyone gets anything out of this, okay? Okay, all of us journalers, we tend to get gifted journals a lot. Like these beautiful, bound, beautiful journals. And most of the time we're so scared to write in them. It's like that blank page anxiety. I do want to talk about that a little bit, okay? Beauty is a conditioning to know what beauty and ugliness is. It's a conditioned response. And you can thank your parents for you looking through this bound book of paper and thinking that it's made of actual gold. Okay? Because how many times, this happened to me all the time, okay? I would get a piece of paper and want to draw or color or whatever, and it would be just like, maybe in a notebook, maybe not. Maybe it was even a coloring book, right? And you're like, you know what? I just want to do this. And then you're done, right? And then you show it to your parents or whatever, or whoever, and they're like, you need to fill that in a little bit more. Like maybe use up the entire piece of paper. Maybe you should use the back of that paper. Okay. This has implanted literally the thought of this is sacred stuff in your brain. Okay. So the fact that you do not want to look at this is my beautiful dragon notebook. Still haven't written a damn thing in this. Okay. And I've had it for over a year now. So I still have those conditioned response too, where the first page is just like, you just can't do it, right? And it sits and sits and sits, and then you just don't do anything with it. And you just have a pile of pretty journals over there sitting doing nothing. It's a conditioned response. So I'm going to do something on camera that has been my go-to for actually getting over the anxiety of the blank journal. And that is damage the beauty in a way. Okay? You could now see in journals like this that are hardbound, okay? The very first page after this initial inner gluing page is glued weird. So it's like this, right? Like it doesn't sit flat. So technically this would be the first page because this one's glued half-assed in there. So what do? To damage the beauty? To damage it so that it's not any longer beautiful or conditioned for me to think that it's beautiful is rip this sucker out. Okay? Literally just... I've also been known to use this first page if I don't want to rip it out, or if I'm already kind of in the mode and I just want to start the tactile experience of writing. I will do what I call teenage love, puppy love page, where you just kind of doodle your name over and over and over again, right? You know how you used to do. Just doodle it, put some little hearts for eyes and blah, 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 and just blah, 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 right? And just fill the whole, just however many times you want to. Just practice your signature on this first page, right? But for the purposes of the damaging that I want to say, you just... There. It's out. It's out. And it's damaged. Okay? Damaging the beauty in a way gets me out of the conditioned response that this is somehow beautiful and made of gold. Okay? Which is pretty ironic when we're thinking about the dragon. Okay? So damage it. Okay? Damage it. And then you really won't care about the beauty anymore. It will turn ugly. All right. But that takes us to another thing, is that I am an ugly journaler. I've spoke about this on my channel a lot. I use Harriet the Spy type composition notebooks, okay? Why? Because when these are sitting around my house, and I've written thousands of these, drawers full in my laundry room, stored away of journals like this, okay? They look inconspicuous, okay? If I have this laying out in the common room of my house, like on the coffee table or on the kitchen table, wherever, no one living with me is any the wiser. They just think, oh, that's a grocery list, a laundry list, a to-do list journal. Like, even if it's a journal, it doesn't look like diary, right? Now, I live with all men, okay? I'm the only girl in my house, okay? So I'm blessed in that way because none of them really give a shit what I put in my journals. They don't care to read my diaries or my journals. They just really could care less what I write down. So I'm blessed in that way. But if you happen to live with assholes or people that just don't give a shit about boundaries and privacy and sacred spaces, then I feel for you. But if you use ugly shit like this, okay, and write in it ugly, I got like loose leaf paper in here, so hang on. Well, I'll just give you this. Like, look, circles and crossing out and no. Like, okay. I line everything. Like, they would flip to any random, if they were to have flipped to any random page, it doesn't look like much. So, use the ugly. And only because, like I said, it's kind of one of those things where if people see like a spiral bound or one of those like cheap notebooks sitting around, it's not necessarily something that someone's going to like just go to and want to pick up and read. Okay. Whereas this, that conditioned response kicks in. And if I see that sitting there, I'm thinking they wrote something very profound in that, you know, maybe. Now, I do not read anyone else's journals. Never have, never will, ever. It's just a boundary that I have placed upon myself, like a vow that I place upon myself. So using ugly helps me in a way to get out of that mindset that anyone would read it or anyone would touch it or whatever. But typically I can be as ugly as I need to be inside the journal, just as well as the outside of it is like a hidden secret kind of thing. It also helps because of its ugliness. I tend to like not care how I write in it, how I organize it, what I cross out. I'm not rigid with it, right? I'm just getting my thoughts out, right? Having the ugly journals or whatever, like, you know, the journals that you just can be your complete self in is such a sacred thing because it's accessible. It's accessible to you. And that's probably my next tip, is make it accessible. I have several journals throughout the house that I pretty much know which one's for what. But most of the time, the journals that I have sitting around in my common areas are just for thoughts and junk, right? You know, and anything I could want to write in there. But making it accessible and making time for it makes it this kind of habitual act, so that if and when, okay, because it will happen, if and when you get inspired, someone does something, says something, you hear something, you read something, you're watching something, whatever, okay, it will be this act, this habitual act that you're like, oh, gotta write that down. And then it's already like somewhere a journal is lurking and you're like, huh. And I always keep a writing utensil. Like, here's mine. I always, whatever page I'm on, I just keep it in there. Every single, like, I can pick up any one of my composition notebooks and a pen is in it. So there's that. But so accessibility, make it accessible for your brain so that it becomes this habitual act, so that in the moments of inspiration and you wanting to get whatever it is on paper so that, you know, it's out of your brain, then make it a habit, make it some kind of habit, right? Travel journals, okay? This is like the size of the palm of my hand, and it was really cheap. you know, a few dollars, and it has one of these handy dandy elastics, okay? But it fits in my purse. It fits in the back pocket of my jeans. It like fits in the glove box, wherever in the car, on my nightstand. I keep actually one of these in my purse and one of these on my nightstand, along with my dream journal. Those stay on my nightstand for night stuff, in the bed thoughts. But having something you can travel with is also a really good tip. That also like really makes it accessible to you, because then you are making it even a bigger habitual act. So if you're out or at a friend's house, right, you can just immediately go to your purse. You know, it's probably somewhere where, like if you're at a party, is where they keep the coats, okay? You just go over there and get it out of wherever it is and write it down, or in your car or whatever. Have something in the travel category. This one is like a high love of mine, okay? These little pocket edition journals. They're like, they're like, it just looks so pretty. It is pretty. It's not necessarily ugly, but it's so small that it puts it more on the spectrum. It puts it more into the ugly spectrum. So I kind of like that. Like, it's like a beautiful journal, but it's so itty bitty that you're just like, okay. Now I have, the reason that I upgraded to this like, pleather journal is because I used to use those memo pads in my purse. The one like you know, the detective ones that are on the spiral, okay, and they're little bitty. The paper, it just disintegrates. Like, all the papers will just be in the bottom of my purse, right? And I'm like, oh, that didn't work. Like, they just fall apart very easy. So I upgraded to this, because it's bound in a way that the papers aren't going anywhere. This is it's a like sturdy travel version. And Field Notes is another great company. I recently watched not a documentary, probably an interview with the guy that came up with that. And I don't know, he's so chill. I just love him. I just loved the interview. So anyway, Field Notes, something like that, something saddle sewn, right? Like something simple as that is the same thing as you can travel. Just something good, that's good bound, that's well bound, that can go with you where you go. Okay. All right. Now, moving from the uglies, okay, and you want to go to the more beautiful. My tip is you have the option to organize the ugly, okay? Now that just means that I'll take some of the thoughts in my composition notebook here and try to organize them in a prettier way, okay? And I usually do this in my moleskin, okay? This is a bigger, 8.5 by 11 moleskin that I have that like I just love, that like literally have not filled out very much in this. I'll probably fill out 20 composition notebook pages for one of these, or two probably, because I usually do adjacent pages. But I like to organize this in a way so that if ever I were to flip to a page, I know exactly what I'm going to read. And the tips that I've learned how to do that in terms of organization are titles, okay? Now, I'm not very good at the other organization tips that I'll tell you about, but I like to just flip to something random and have a title. Like that says offerings, right? This was a book that I read, and they went over some terms, and I wanted to define and look up the terms in more depth. So I did this in like a chart, right? But if I ever just flip to this page, I will know exactly what it is because I wrote a title, a big title. Any one of these pages is set up like that. Titles are my go-to, really. But in terms of organization, you can add page numbers to your books, to your notebooks, to your journals or whatever. Like as you're going, write a page number, right? And then you can, I would make a table of contents after the whole thing is done. You can like go back once the journal is completed and then make a table of contents in the very beginning. So it's set up just like a book. So you go to the table of contents, you're like, hey, today I want to talk about blank. And you it will tell you which page, and you just flip to that page, just like you would a normal book. So I'm not good at that because I kind of like the act and the experience of flipping through the book to get where I want to go. I've always been that way. I kind of just want things to be wonky and me to like go through the act of finding whatever it is. So I don't know, that works for me. But for some, a table of contents and page numbers might work in terms of organizing it. But having another book aside from my ugly composition notebooks, I can be a little bit more rigid with this, a little bit more pretty, and a little bit more titled and clean. I'll say clean, to keep some actual thoughts, some referenceable thoughts. This is mostly for stuff that I want to be able to look back on. And that's probably the next tip that I have, is highlight and annotate your journals. I've been known to do this a lot. Even in my composition notebooks, especially probably, I tend to only write in black ink, okay, in my composition notebooks. I just always have one of these little Bic pens, and I go to town with whatever, okay? But sometimes I'll write something down. It could be a quote, it could be a line from a movie, a line from a book, blah, 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 whatever, it doesn't matter. But if I want to like reference it back, or possibly it's a page that I know will go into my more organized journal, highlight it. My version of this is to write it in another color ink. So I'll write it in a red pen, you know? Or if I've already written it down and I'm like, wait, I want to reference that back, then I'll just take a highlighter and then that way when I'm flipping through, okay, flipping through this thing, it'll stand out because I've got like my pink highlighter, and it's something that's highlighted in here, and that makes it stand out, and then I know exactly what I'm wanting to reference at a given time. Like it's already highlighted for me. I don't have to like read 100 pages that I've just wrote. So that's definitely something that I like to do is, you can even, and when I said annotate, you can even like put those little tabs on there. I use Post-it notes all the time to stick in a page that I know I need to go back to. So if I'm not using Post-its, if I have my highlighter handy, then I'll highlight. But if I have my Post-its handy, then I'll just Post-it that page. And it kind of acts like this annotation thing, this annotation practice. I don't know. All right, now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of some things here. I was specifically asked how to tell the truth in your journals. Because like if it's a shadow thing, right? Like if it's shadow, if you're not ready to face a certain truth, how do you write it down? And I want to, I want to say this. The journal is not for glory. The journal is a modern day confessional. It's for catharsis. Okay? It's in your best interest to write those shadows down, to write those truths down. But sometimes it can be hard. Okay? So I've got some tips for telling the truth and laying down some shadows in your journal and keeping secrets and keeping yourself safe while spouting your truths out. Okay? The first one is a journal is typically bound. Okay? Like if you're not using a 3-ring binder or something like that, your journals are typically bound. And that's the response that you have, is that once I write it in here, it's with all the other pages, and you somehow get this kind of anxious notion that you can't rip that page out. Okay? At the end of the day, it's paper. If you write something down that you're not ready to face, rip the damn thing out. Rip it out of your journal. And then rip it up. Throw it away. Burn it. Literally light your gas stove on fire and light that paper. And then it's not there. It's not there. But catharsis works differently. The tactile experience of writing something down and getting it out of your brain acts as catharsis in and of itself. So just because you can't keep it in your journal for fear of someone seeing it or reading it or finding something out, you can, at the end of the day, you can still rip that page out and throw it away, or burn it if thrown it away is not good enough. But I will say that a tip that I've used before is using other things. Use separate things. If you already know going in, you know, I've gotten about half of my journaling session done today, and there's some stuff that I really need to write out. I need to get it out. Catharsis, okay? I need to get it out, but I can't. Get a Post-it note. Get an index card. Get an actual piece of, like a piece of notebook paper, like that's a loose leaf, and write it on that. Because it's more transient that way. It's not firmly bound in the book, and you don't have to go through the process of ripping it out. Write it on a Post-it note. Write it on an index card. Write it on something separate. The act of writing is what you need to do, is where you need to go. So just writing it down is going to be helpful because, like I said, the journal acts as a modern day confessional. Get it out. It acts as like this kind of weird absolution, right? You're confessing it. Confess it. You know? Lock yourself in your closet, light a fucking candle, and confess that shit to your journal. Okay? I'm sorry. I'm getting a little passionate. Oh. But anyway, using some kind of loose leaf helps. But if loose leaf helps you, another tip is pockets, 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 pockets. Okay? You can make your own pockets. You can take an actual piece of paper and in your journal, I'll do this, okay? And in your journal, washi tape 3 sides. There, you made a pocket. Okay, now I tend to do this in my more rigid, organized journals. I've done this a lot in my life. I've glued old bill envelopes to a page before, and it acts as a pocket because I just cut the very top of it off. But I've glued envelopes and made my own envelopes a ton in my journals. Now, if this is a secret, okay, and you need to write it down, but you don't want it in your journal, so you wrote it on an index card, you can put it in an envelope and then seal that envelope. Now, like I said before, unless you're living with a teetotal asshole, they're not gonna, even if they're sifting through your journal, like they picked it up and they're just sitting on the couch chilling and they read it, they're not gonna peel open that envelope. It's about the catharsis. That's it. So if you want to keep it secret, keep it safe, then tuck it in an envelope and then lick the thing and seal it and then tack it in your notebook somehow, you know? I've done that a ton of times. And you know what's in there. You know what's in there. Just like you know what's in your heart. But it's just about, I wrote it down, it's out, and it's firmly in the journal, you know, for whenever I want to deal with it. Another thing about the loose leaf that I've done before is art, I guess you could say art pieces. Like an index card, for instance, one side, the ones I buy, the one side has lines and the other side's blank, right? I do some kind of like artsy, abstract thing with markers or whatever, color pencils on the blank side. And then I write that secret, that secret truth, that hidden truth on the other lined part. Okay. And then I literally washi tape it into the journal. But then anyone looking would just think it's an art piece. They wouldn't think you've written anything on the other side. And again, no one's really trying to peel away things that you've tacked into your journal. So use some kind of artistic visual effect for keeping stuff secret and keeping it safe. I have used this in a couple of journals before. The blackout or sticker method, which is probably what I would say is like my Mad Lib journaling, okay? And that's where you take a Sharpie and you blank out certain words. You know what they are. You know what the words are, okay? But no one else reading it would know. It would look like a confidential classified document, okay? Which is the point. They can't read the word that you wrote, but you know in your heart what it says. You can also, in place of those like blacked out marker lines, you could just put stickers. If you got like some small kitschy stickers or whatever, and you're into that, stickers are pretty damn permanent, okay? You start sticking stickers on paper, they're not coming off, okay? You're ripping some stuff up if you try. So you can use stickers to, like, you know, your nouns and your verbs, okay, or whatever, and you just stick them in those places. Then anyone reading that won't really know. And I mean, unless they really get the reference, they probably won't know the noun that you covered up or the adverb or whatever, okay? So using stickers and some kind of blackout method, confidential classified document method. Okay, now my favorite method is using codes and using metaphors. So now when I say code, I mean like literally, quite literally a code. So that means that, and I really only do this in my secret journals, okay? Like the ones that are like the real, for real, my eyes only journals. And that is, I'll have like this kind of thing where this word means this. These words mean this. And I'll just kind of write out like I'm writing out a narrative of my truth using that code. And I keep the key to that code in a separate spot, like in the lockbox that I have in the bottom of my nightstand. Or I keep that shit with my vital records in my filing cabinet. It's a code. And I keep the key to that code separate than that journal. So if you're really wanting to get really secret, really safe, and really rigid with yourself, you could come up with your own code. But I have been known, okay, because I'm good at this, and that's using metaphor. Okay, now off the top of my head, if you live in an unsafe, like I said, you're living with assholes and they want to read your shit and they have no boundary. They just like have boundary issues abound. Okay. I've been known to use metaphor a lot in my journals because it's kind of like I'm writing a story, like I said, but it's different every time. It's just like how I'm feeling, right? So if you're living with assholes and say you lost your virginity, okay, that day, I would say something like, the whale took my diamond today. Top of my head, right? This was out on top of my head. You would know what that meant, but no one else reading that, they would be like, what the hell is this bitch talking about? Okay, that's what I do. I do that actually pretty often in my journals. I'll write something and I'll be like, I don't know if I want to say that like out loud with my pen. And I'll just be like, the whale took my diamond. The mailman took my diamond today. Like, whatever, you know? And you could even like say, the whale took my yogurt, right? And it could be something like, you know, someone stole your yogurt out of the company fridge or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what you're going through. But you can use like things for other things and metaphors. And I've used that a lot over the course of my, 20 years doing this. I've written a lot of metaphors just on the off chance, quite literally on the off chance of someone picking it up and reading it. Not that I don't think that's ever happened to me. I'm blessed that way. I don't think that's ever happened to me. And if it has, no one's actually come up to me and confessed. So even if someone had read what I've written before, no one's actually come up and been like, oh, I saw you read this. I saw you wrote that. And I'm like, as you can tell, I don't like boundary. I gotta have firm boundaries with folks. Okay. But anyway, yeah. So the journal is a modern day confessional and it's about catharsis. I mean, this isn't going to be your autobiography someday. I mean, maybe it is. I mean, if we thought about the journals and, I mean, if Marcus Aurelius thought that we would be reading his meditations today, like, thank the goddess we have them, okay? Thank the goddess that we have them. Because over the decades that I've been reading that, I'm happy to know it. The Diary of Anne Frank, right? Malala, like anyone that be writing a journal or a diary and now is a published work that we can read, they probably weren't doing it for fame. Oh, they probably weren't doing it for fame or any kind of glory. They were doing it for catharsis, to get their thoughts out. The journal acted in most of those cases, it acted like a confessional and a sacred space. So get to journaling. Just do it. Just do it because this tactile experience. Oh, well, first of all, it's fun. And you can do so much with it. You can be as artistic and visually appealing as you want to, or as ugly. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's paper. It's not made of gold. Get out of that conditioned response. So anyway, I hope that these tips were helpful in some way or informative, or if you know, if nothing else, you had fun. Okay. And I hope to see everyone again soon on the channel. Much love.